Paul Keating, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you, Sarah.
Richard Marles has been in Washington this week. He said American military involvement with Australia is in every domain: land, sea, air, cyber and space. What's wrong with cooperating with an ally deemed indispensable for Australia's security?
Well, what's wrong is that we completely lose our strategic autonomy. The right of Australian governments and the Australian people to determine where and how they respond in the world is taken away if we let the United States and its military displace our military and our foreign policy prerogatives.
I mean, is it your argument also that increasing American troop presence and broader military presence here makes Australia more of a target?
Yes, I think we're now defending the fact that we're in AUKUS. If we weren't in AUKUS, we wouldn't need to defend it. Let me amplify the point. That is, if we didn't have an aggressive ally, like the United States, aggressive to others in the region, there'd be nobody attacking Australia. Like, we are better left alone than we are being protected by an aggressive power like the United States.
Why is America aggressive?
Oh, because it's aggressive because it's trying to superintend from the Atlantic the largest Asian power, which is China, with 4 times its population, an economy 20% larger, a navy of the same size. They're going to try and superintend it as the primary, get this, the primary strategic power in Asia. That is 9,000 kilometres from the California coast, facing a country of 1.4 billion, 4 times their population. They're going to superintend them.
Now, they're going
to knock them into line.
The rationale for this has been since the publication of the Defence Strategic Review has been clear. That is the rapid escalation, the rapid and undeniable escalation of the Chinese military. Why shouldn't Australia embrace an alliance that counterbalances that power?
Because that power has no strategic designs upon Australia. I mean, what this is all about is the Chinese laying claim to Taiwan. And the Americans are going to say, no, we're going to keep these Taiwanese people protected, even though they're sitting on Chinese real estate.
Although it's, well, let me just stop there on the Chinese real estate. What about Taiwanese real estate and the wishes of the Taiwanese people?
Yeah, well, the Chinese real estate is part of China. Let me make the analogy. It would be like the Chinese saying to us, look, we think Tasmania has been forgotten and poorly treated for many years. We want to keep the sea route down the east coast of Australia through Bass Strait across to Perth and the Indian Ocean open. So we're going to put some frigates there, and we will economically support the Tasmanian people should they wish to secede from Australia. We'd say, look, that's shocking.
Let's just stay with Taiwan for the moment, because the Chinese have said that they will, by taking back Taiwan, to use their phrase, they would dismantle all of Taiwanese civil society. Are you prepared to just see all of that gone?
Taiwan is not a vital Australian interest. Tasmania would be, if it was us. We would fight anybody touching Tasmania, like the Chinese will fight anyone touching Taiwan. You see, the thing is this, Sherry, you've got to understand this. The Chinese will fight to the last teenage soldier to defend Taiwan and the Chinese state, and the Americans will not take on such a fight, and more than that, will not win it. So we end up being we get the carry-on rights, and all of a sudden the Americans take off and leave us, and we're the ones that have done all the offence. You know what I mean?
Let me just come back to the question I asked, though, because as was said in the Defence Strategic Review, this is about responding to not only, but one of the primary reasons for the reshaping of the Australian military in concert with the United States and allies in the region is because of the rapid escalation of the Chinese military. So the question is, why shouldn't Australia embrace an alliance that seeks to balance that power?
Because we're not threatened by the Chinese military. Look, China's got an economy now, according to the IMF, 20% larger than America. What are they expecting to move around in rowboats? Canoes, maybe. you know. So they developed their own submarines, their own frigates, their own aircraft carriers. They are the other major state in the world. And what the Americans say, no, keep your place. You know, go back to your canoes, you know. I mean, really.
But if you were, if you were Prime Minister and you had the responsibility, as you have had in the past, to defend Australia, wouldn't you seek to counter an unprecedented military expansion, something the size of which we haven't seen since the Second World War, by the most powerful possible adversary?
Australia is capable of defending itself. Let's say, what is the threat? And that is an invasion. An invasion comes in an armada. With satellites today, you see the armada formed. You would see it leave its harbour. You would see it for 10 or 15 days come to Australia, and you would sink every one of them on the way. You don't need the United States to defend Australia. Australia is quite capable of defending itself.
I just want to come back to what you said about Taiwan, because it sounds from what you're saying that you would be perfectly happy to give up any support of Taiwan for the Chinese to resume control of Taiwan. You have no objection to that?
Any military support? Absolutely.
What about any support for the Taiwanese people who say they don't want that?
It'll get resolved socially and politically over time. That's what will happen there. But the thing is, it's not our matter. I mean, does anyone want their kids to be shot to death on a sandy beach in Taiwan? Australian kids shot to death on a sandy beach in Taiwan? This is the outcome of such a policy.
Let's just go to AUKUS for a moment, because there are analysts who say that developments in AI will make it easier to track large manned submarines, and that we should be focusing more on building swarms of unmanned underwater drones.
Yeah.
Is that what you're concerned about, defence betting on the wrong technology?
No, what I'm concerned about is us, you see, we're going to get AUKUS, but not the submarines. What we're going to get is what Kurt Campbell, the Deputy Secretary of State, has said, we're going to tie these guys up for 40 years. What AUKUS is about in the American mind is turning the suckers into Australia. We're locking us up for 40 years with American bases all around. I mean, what this report today tells you, they're going to have American bases all around Australia. American bases, not Australian, but all around Australia. So AUKUS is really about, in American terms, the military control of Australia. I mean, what's happened, I say this, the Albanese government, with in their policy, is likely to turn Australia into the 51st state of the United States.
Let's talk about what China has done. The way you put it, it's as if China is simply on the defensive from an aggressive America. You used the term aggressive earlier on, but China has territorial disputes of its own with Vietnam, with India, with Malaysia, the Philippines and Brunei.
Yeah.
Don't you welcome a countervailing force to that?
The Americans are not a countervailing force there. Look, just imagine this, Sarah. Just imagine if the Chinese Blue Water Navy was sailing down the coast of California, stopping off, or nearby stopping off, in Los Angeles and San Diego. Could you imagine the uproar? Right? But this is what they do every day of the week to the Chinese.
At the same time, there's a series of countries in Asia, democracies, who could change their countries profoundly tomorrow
but it's not
if they
our
wanted
job.
to, who choose to have and allow to remain American bases in Asia.
Yeah, good on them, but not us. We've got a continent of our own and a border with nobody, and we're not likely to be threatened by a soul. The only threat likely to come from us is because we have an aggressive ally, because of AUKUS. I mean, all of this defensive talk now is defending us against AUKUS. If we didn't have AUKUS, you wouldn't need the defence, you follow?
And just to finish, is it your contention, as someone who was once responsible for the defence of Australia, that faced with the rapid escalation of the Chinese military, Australia should do nothing?
No, Australia should have submarines which protect the littoral waters of Australia. It should have attacking and bomber aircraft to sink ships. It should have self-propelled mines. It should all the things, the modern things that you can keep. Look, there's no way another state can invade a country like Australia with an armada of ships without it all failing. I mean, Australia is quite capable of defending itself. We don't need to be basically a pair of shoes hanging out of the American backside.